Perfect. I see it's just clicked over to 12 o'clock, so I'll get us started. And if you guys are eating your lunch, I know it's lunchtime, that is so okay. Feel free to continue eating. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I am Kate Toomey, and I am one of the Sexual and Reproductive Health Project Officers at the Centre for Excellence in Rural Sexual Health, also known as SERSH. I would like to welcome you all to celebrating sluts as a political force for gender equality. This is a session we at SERSH are really looking forward to hosting. Today's webinar is part of our Sexual Wellness Professional Development Series, which will be presented by Dr. Hilary Caldwell, whom I will introduce shortly. Now, before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands and waterways across Victoria and Australia, which we are all joining from today. I'm joining you from Dja Dja Wurrung country, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and I'd like to extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people online with us today. I also want to acknowledge the deep importance of Indigenous knowledge in the field of sexual and reproductive health. Wherever we are zooming in from, we are all on Aboriginal land and sovereignty was never ceded. Now, just a quick housekeeping note for today's session. We kindly ask that everyone stays on mute during the presentation, but please feel free to share your questions in the chat. I'll be actively monitoring it throughout the presentation. And like I said, this session is being recorded, so if you prefer not to appear on screen, please switch off your camera. Also, like I said, we are recording this session, so it will be available on our website next week. You're more than welcome to revisit it there, along with our past sexual wellness webinars. Now, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you all to Dr. Hilary Caldwell. Dr. Hilary Caldwell is a sex worker, author, academic, sexologist, and longtime advocate for gender justice. With a doctorate on women who buy sex and over 2 decades of professional experience, Hilary brings fierce intelligence, lived experience, and clarity to public conversations about pleasure, power, and consent. Thank you so much, Hilary, for presenting today, and over to you.
Thank you, Kate. It's such a pleasure to be here and to see so many people who are interested in sluts. Um, so let's get started. Today, 12 o'clock online, we are going to talk about this topic. Can I have the next slide, please, Kate? I also wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of this never ceded land. Here, it's the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people, and it is Canberra, known to white people, which is an Indigenous word meaning meeting place. So it's quite appropriate that we should have a meeting and I should be in this place at the time. I also wish to acknowledge and thank sex workers and women who came forward for me to learn from in my PhD, but also in the research for my book. And I wish to also acknowledge that I have the connections I have and the community I have because I have been involved in activism for 20 years and I've been involved with the community, but most of that time was with a fake name. So my work is kind of invisible in that way, but I am the result of those years of activism and engagement. I also wish to acknowledge that I would never have the privilege of being here right now if it wasn't for past sex workers and the work that they've done, and I stand on their shoulders most proudly. Next slide, please. Oh, here is the same blurb that you just received. And I guess I wanted to say more about my privilege as well, because I am a sex worker a long time, and sex work was the means which allowed me to study. It gave me the information that I needed to know more about sex, a lot more. And it also gave me the funds to do research and to be in the position I am in today, where I realized that not all sex workers have the same privilege I have. And my privilege of being out and proud and face out, as we like to say in the industry, is because I no longer need another job. I don't need to put in job applications. I don't need another loan application. I don't have to do the things, the life things that having whore on your CV would prevent. So I have the privilege of being able to come out and also the privilege of being able to challenge people because I'm a granny. I've got 10 grandkids and I absolutely love them. I'm engaged in my community. I volunteer and well known. And I'm able to be this good person so that when people know I'm also a sex worker, they can be really challenged with who are sex workers and why is this person challenging my stereotypical ideas? So this is a privilege that I have and I acknowledge. And yeah, I wish to use my privilege to elevate the status of sex work and to reduce stigma for others who it is not safe for many people to come out and be face out like I am. So yeah, that's my acknowledgement. Next slide, please, Kate. So this presentation is basically about slut shaming, and I know a lot about slut shaming because I've been the victim of it as a sex worker. So today we're going to talk about how sex positivity is now mainstream. And you know what? You're all sexual health professionals, so you don't actually need I hate to think that I'm telling you to suck eggs because this stuff is really basic, but it's also a culmination of experience from the practical sex work to the academic research. Like that gives me a kind of a lens that when I wrap this up together and talk about how gender equality could be achieved if we just got rid of the idea that sluts are bad, then you know that's kind of controversial idea, but I hope that I'll convince you by the end by telling you stuff you already know. So I'm going to tell you that sex positivity is all great, and then we talk about sluts, and also remind you that sluts have more fun, but then remind you that sex workers have a lot of discrimination, but sex is good. So I'm going back and forth because this is what's in my head with these conversations that I have with my various experience. Then I want to present some of my research about women who buy sexual services because that was a powerful topic, one that had a lot of criticism before I set out to do it, and then a lot of attention once I had achieved all of the interviews and data collection. And then after talking about my research, I position that, but then talk more about how sexual inequality is gender inequality and why all this leads to gender-based violence and how I can see that that is the problem, that problem won't go away unless we deal with sexual inequality. And also talk about how slutopia is possible because you guys need a happy ending after some of the more difficult stuff, and also how to be a sex worker ally. So I'm sure you already are, but just some more tips. Thank you. Next slide, please, Kate. So sex positivity has been mainstreamed, and we all know how great sex is. We all know that orgasms actually dissolve cortisol, like that's the purpose of them. We need them to dissolve cortisol, and we have a lot of stress. The world is getting more stressful, so we're going to need more orgasms, and we all know that the whole world is coming with us with this sex positive idea because it's been so mainstreamed, which is fantastic. But what we know is that we're not equal sexually, divided by genders. You know, we've got an orgasm gap, all that sort of stuff. But when we look at sex work, we can see what the problem is. And sex workers are the canaries in the coal mine. And that's why I'm here to talk about this with you today. And when I talk about the treatment of sex workers as being indicative of the entire status of women, it's not because all sex workers are women, not at all. They're stereotypically women. When people think about sex workers, they think about women. And that is why the way we're treated is the benchmark of how all women are treated in a society and why we're held back by that. Next slide. Thanks, Kate. So, slut to me means all of these wonderful things: empowered, independent, boundary setter, initiator. Yes, a whore. Yes, a slut. And the reason I think we absolutely have to reclaim slut is because it has a power. I talk to so many people about reclaiming the word and they recoil from me. I just tell them my book's called Slutdom and they recoil. They do not want to talk about sluts. They're happy to talk about positive sexuality and how important it is, but nobody wants to be a slut. And there's a very good reason for that. Um, because next slide. Oops, I've lost all of you now. Fiddling, sorry. Come back. Yep, here we go. Thanks. Because when women have great sex, and this is something that my research participants told me, all the sluts of the world and all the sex worker friends that I have, and my own body tells me that when we have sex with lots of different people, we get better at it. And it's not just, you know, good at fucking, it's good at giving and receiving pleasure, which is a beautiful thing. It's about connecting on a deep emotional level. The more often you do it, with the more people you do it with, the better you get at connecting on this deep level. And the better you get at negotiating, at communicating your desires. And this includes when we're not speaking, but we're using body language. Sex workers are so tuned to people's body language because we are actually on guard for our safety like all the time. So we have to be really attuned to people's body language. But also, we're giving and receiving pleasure. So we really need to know exactly how someone's feeling so that we can do that the best way we can so they'll be a repeat customer. Because, it's a job, right? So when we all have better sexual experiences more often because it's fun and we want to, we actually get the health benefits of sex, not just the dissolving of cortisol and the more empathy with other people, but the better blood flow and the better your immune systems. Like everyone's very quick to say how important exercise is for our health, but if you measure every single way that exercise is useful for us, sex is better on every measure. And how many GPs are saying, here's a script for some orgasms? Like that just doesn't happen. So we really need to, we are the sexual health professionals to promote how important sex is for our health, mental, physical, everything. And sluts are the women who have practiced. So that's a very good thing. Next slide, please, Kate. Unfortunately, bringing the tone down, the discrimination for sex workers is completely over the top. Like I know that unless you've experienced this, it'd be hard for you to know how intense it is and how insidious it is. It's like every single day there are microaggressions. You hear about sex workers being talked about on news.com in some very disrespectful way. You see a movie, yeah, she got murdered. You go to the bank. My bank refused me FPOS services for my sexology job, even though I had all the certificates and I had my business registered and I paid all the money. And then FPOS was refused to me because I could be involved in sex trafficking or laundry or something. I know I do a lot of laundry of towels and sheets, but not that much with money, and there's not that much coming in. I'm only one body to earn it. But anyway, I have been blackmailed and rather severely blackmailed in ways that affected my mental health quite badly. I've also been extorted for sex. I won't tell anyone what you do if you be good. I've been stalked. I've had people call out my working name and follow me around the supermarket while I'm holding my children's hands. Like it just is so hard. I've also been refused healthcare on many occasions and even quite recently as an out sex worker with a PhD, it's not good enough for some people who don't want to touch a whore or who just think I'm not worthy of their attention. It's well known that sex workers can't get life and income protection insurance. It's written into their policy documents. We can't get workers' compensation or other labour rights. Many of the laws, we're still suffering in the ACT under some laws that criminalise us in most ways, but we're dealing with it and we're hoping to get them changed soon. But we are criminalised in ways that keep us isolated, which is the case in many states in so-called Australia. And, you know, to not have labor rights in 2026 is a shame on society. Other sex workers are denied housing, like you can't get a loan. How can you get a house? You can't put a rental up, you can't put sex work on your rental application. Airbnbs make no secret. Sex workers are not welcome. You don't have to be working. You're just not welcome at all. We get kicked off online spaces, which is really drastic because that's how we earn most of our money these days because street-based sex worker work is just not like that feasible anymore. When we've got mobile phones, it's much quicker and easier to do that, but that requires a web page and a web presence. But we get kicked off regularly. Most of us have alternate names and alternate accounts ready to turn into our new personality as soon as we get kicked off one or on to another. But, you know, not everyone has that privilege of being able to pivot or have or to be able to live in the meantime before you can get your profile back up. So we, yeah, regularly kicked off. They're proud of doing these things to sex workers. I've seen sex workers lose custody of their children for no reason other than being a sex worker. No, children have never been exposed. And of course, intimate relationships can be fraught with the way that men think about women's sexuality. People lose their families, courts, healthcare, justice, employment opportunities. We travel. We're not allowed to go to the US for, I don't know, 20 years. And, you know, it's just ridiculous. They don't have sex in the US or something. I don't know. But anyway, the treatment of sex workers is evidence of what will happen to any woman who dares to be unashamedly sexual. So it's not just about the person being shamed, it's sending a message to every woman. And how does that affect every woman and their ability to enjoy their bodies and to help other people enjoy their bodies too? It's just ridiculous. But I want to make the point that when you disrespect sluts, especially sluts who get paid, it doesn't always end in violence. Most of my experiences are very loving, but all violence against women begins with that disrespect that we receive in general on the daily. Next slide, please, Kate. I just want to say again that sex is good for us. I mean, I know you know. But basically, what I'm trying to say is something you all know, that when you shame women, you turn us into Madonnas or whores. You can't be both. You can't be one in the bedroom and one in the kitchen. You can't be both. You're one or the other. And if you're a whore, you're treated badly. And if you're a Madonna, you're on a pedestal until you fall off. So it's not really been very good for us to be Madonnas. The gendered pleasure gap is well evidenced. It's grounded in sexually shaming women. I've got my lovely grandchildren now to teach me more about life than I knew before. And I watch my little 2-year-old. She's dancing to YouTube and she is so sexy. She's so gorgeous. And everyone is like, oh, she's so cute. But then she starts doing that dancing in the supermarket and it's like, stop. Stop. Don't want anyone to see you doing that. Don't want you to be looked at by other people. Don't want other people to think that maybe one day you'll be a sexual person. So stop doing that right now. And her little hips stop. And I wonder to myself, when will her hips be free? When will she not internalize the shame that women have to feel about our own bodies that men don't suffer? But to have sex is so human. We all do it because it's so good for us. We're meant to. We should be encouraged. But I want to make the point that all of this sexual inequality, gender, leads to gender-based violence, and the shame is really bad for us. So thank you, Kate. Sorry, you can flick away. Thanks. So here is my research. This is what I found that really helped me concrete some of these ideas. I looked at women who buy sexual services and I finished my PhD in 2018. It was the first in the world of its type. And I did a mixed method by doing a textual analysis of some online data, a qualitative analysis of information from sex workers who had women clients. And then I did an interpretive phenomenological analysis of women who bought sexual services. Next slide, please. So, what did they tell me? They told me that when women buy sexual services, okay, the first thing they have to do is know that they want it, admit it, and then they have to work out what they want. How many women have found out what they want sexually without the influence of another person telling them what they think they want? Like a lot of women just do not know what they like sexually. And most women find it very difficult to communicate that to someone, or to initiate it, to negotiate it, and to get what they want. So when women buy sexual services, they're in charge. It's up to them. The best experience they're going to have is through the best communication and the best learning. So Avery bought sexual services because she was suffering from vaginismus. And she was a 69-year-old woman whose husband had dementia and wasn't having sex with her anymore. And she realized that her husband would die in the near future and that she would like to have another relationship. But she hadn't actually been able to have sex for a long time because of her vaginismus. And she thought that that would really hinder her chances of having a relationship in the future. So she bought sexual services with a person and then another person. And before you know it, she was having all these different experiences with big black men and sports gym junkies who she never thought she'd be attracted to in the past. But suddenly she was learning that there's more out there and that it's a very complex idea, this being horny. And yeah, she woke up her libido by doing this. And I don't know what's happened to her now, but I hope she's doing well. And Callie was another one, another example I wanted to give because she was like, when she bought sexual services from someone, she was like sucking his dick at one point, and then she sort of said to herself, well, "Why should I? I don't want to do this. Like I always do this, but I actually don't want to." So she stopped doing it. Of course, the sex worker didn't mind. You know, it's your service. This is going to be great for you. So then she realized that she doesn't have to suck dick. Like it's just because somebody else went down on her, it doesn't mean she has to go down on them. So it changed the way she dated. Like she started calling the shots when she was dating. So it really made a big difference to her life experiences, and her sexual experiences. So these women, they also taught me that, they recognize the value, the therapeutic value of buying sexual services, even if they bought it for fun. They felt it was safer than dating because they could see the profile of the sex worker. They did a lot of research to make sure they found a good one that was safe. And you need to do your research before you make a decision. There are bad actors. They felt much more self-confidence, not just in the bedroom, but everywhere. And, you know, some of them said to me that they went off and asked the boss for a raise the next day. Like things that they had never thought of doing, never thought that they could do, they suddenly felt they could try. And this is why having confidence in here, in sex, in this very, very personal part of ourselves that forms our identity, if you are confident here, you can be more confident out there. And you know, the numbers of women in corporations and government, maybe there would be more if we were all feeling equally confident in our sexuality. So they felt that embracing their sexual autonomy was a path to empowerment. And I think that sexual autonomy for women will reduce the orgasm gap because we demand more or better. And we make it worth someone's while because giving and sharing pleasure is such a beautiful thing. And I think this is vital for sexual and gender inequality, as I will show you. Next slide, please, Kate. So the bad news was that even though these women felt so confident, they also felt really burdened with the shame of it. Most of them had never told anyone about buying sexual services. And half of them said that they bought sexual services for a therapeutic reason. Some said fun, but then they also said they had more therapy than they expected. And the ones who bought it for therapy said they had more fun than they expected. And this is because internalized stigma makes it more difficult to admit that you're just horny. It's just a good thing to be horny. Like this internalized stigma is difficult for women. And like one woman who I was talking to her about how she bought these sexual services from a body worker because she was doing like counseling to find out what parts of her body were holding the tension from childhood sexual abuse and or terrible things that she'd suffered. And then she said to me, well, I actually bought sexual services in all these other ways before, and I never actually thought they were because I didn't think about it before. I was so busy thinking about therapy. So that's why when women buy services, um, they might want to say it's all about therapy, but everything is therapy. All sex, all good sex is therapy. And maybe why bad sex can be so damaging. Could you click the clicker, please, Kate? Because there's an animation on this one with the rooster. Like, this is what we should be doing. We should be on the roof crowing for every orgasm we have so that we can say we're very proud of this. And this feeling that we have can transform our lives because we can crow about it. And yeah, let's talk more about that. Next slide, please, Kate. Okay. What my participants taught me about the sex industry, which of course I already know, but it's great to have some data and evidence of lots of people saying the same thing, is that the sex industry was a place where people, women I was talking to, but people have learning opportunities. We learn, and sex workers are experts at consent negotiation and explaining things and like showing. Like, I've been a sex therapist, hands off. It's really hard for, say, a man to explain that he has premature ejaculation. And that premature ejaculation, it might be like 3 minutes of penis and vaginal sex, and then he has an ejaculation, and then he's like, I got premature ejaculation. Well, actually, that's not premature ejaculation because average time is 3 to 7 minutes of penis and vagina time anyway for heteronormatives. So, like, why he thinks he's got this big problem. When I see a client as a sex worker, I can see if they're going to have, I can feel, I can sense that they're going to have an ejaculation, so I can take it back. I can bring it forward. And the kiss, I've said here, is the first thing I like to do with people so I can really feel them. I can really know what's going on when I kiss someone. It's so much information is passed through lips and the rest of our bodies when we're kissing. Not all sex workers like to kiss. This is something I do like to do. But when I can kiss someone, I can tell they're going to need to come, this stop-start thing with the premature ejaculation. I mean, that's something I'm showing, I'm modeling. I don't have to talk about it the way I do when I'm being a sex therapist. And I've got to say, being a sex therapist is a lot more difficult than being a sex worker. And practicing sex is a great thing. And I want to say it's humanitarian work. I haven't given much background as to why I say this on this slide, but it's because sex is so human. It's because sex is so important to us. It's because being able to share these experiences with people is really meaningful to our clients. It's humanitarian work. There's a loneliness epidemic. Men are suiciding at really dreadful rates. If we could encourage people to see sex workers, they might be a lot happier. Next slide. Thanks, Kate. So when women particularly are having great sexual experiences, everyone benefits. When women are valued and respected for these experiences, we'll all be better off. Because slut shaming is patriarchy's most insidious weapon. While we recoil from the word slut, while we don't want my book to be called Slut, and that's the only academic criticism I've had from my entire thesis, is people aren't ready to be sluts. Don't slap them in the face with the word. Well, how else do people really get to know how important it is? Like, that is exactly why we need to crow from the rooftops and why we need to, well, I'm not going to slap people in the face, but I'm going to say slut, and I'm going to say it a lot because it is the most insidious weapon. If we can't be shamed, if because we just make a collective decision not to be, if we just say, we know sex is good, it's mainstreamed, we're going to be the great sluts who have practiced. If we can say that openly, then patriarchy doesn't have any power with that particular weapon. And the more sexual thrills we have and share, the more we can reclaim slut for ourselves and see that the word slut actually means women who have practiced, women who are empowered. The first step is to examine the canaries in the coal mine or even let them sing. Let them sing because criminalizing sex workers and stigmatizing us is the benchmark. Every society is judged. The sexual autonomy of a society is judged by those who are treated the worst. So being nice to sex workers is the very first thing we need to do. And that's why if we don't reclaim the word slut, then patriarchy still has that weapon and it's going to be intergenerationally maintained as it is today. But we can all stop. So the slut shaming is whorephobia, and it's designed specifically to keep women subservient to men, and it does so on every level. So if you're not comfortable being a slut, you're still part of the problem. And I understand nobody is comfortable. It's a lifetime. That's all right. You can do it. Okay. It's a lifetime of conditioning that has made us not want to be sluts. And that's really hard to push through, but I will talk about it a bit. Thanks, Kate. Oh, these are recommendations from my PhD. So they're a bit boring and you all know them. That, be nice to sex workers, fully support all genders, being a slut too. Sex ed is so important. If every person knew that the purpose of sex, the very first purpose of sex was to reduce cortisol, we'd all be having much more of it. But no, it's about children and all of that sort of religious narrative. But you all know that. It's about pleasure. So decriminalizing sex work, protecting LGBT rights and supporting gender equality is all part of picture. Next slide, please, Kate. So beyond my research, I want to talk more about how sexual inequality equals gender inequality. And I mean, it's a no-brainer, but it's a no-brainer that's not being utilized. And I say that because gender equality is measured by the World Economic Forum and countries are compared. And the four pillars that they use to compare and measure and compare are the gender pay gap, the numbers of women in leaders, in education and in health. And, we're doing okay in education. Not so good in health, not so good in leaders. The gender pay gap still exists here in Australia. Pardon me. Victoria Bateman, the naked feminist, is a Cambridge University professor in economics, in feminist economics, and her book, The Naked Feminist, shows not only how a country's economy will improve if women are equal, but that the reason we're not, based on all of those measures of the World Economic Forum, women's modesty is the reason why the gender pay gap exists, the numbers of women leaders, education and health. It's our modesty. It's our sexual modesty. And she really puts her body out there by doing all of her lectures about her book, The Naked Feminist, in the nude, to make the point that she should be just as valued for her brain as she is for her body, and vice versa. Just because she has a very attractive body to look at doesn't mean that her brain is worth less. And so this is how she makes this point very obviously. And I say exactly the same thing, but I use a more, what do you call it, positive, solution focused. I say exactly the same thing. I'm Dr. Slut, and I say that women's sexual experience is rebellion against gender inequality. So I'm looking towards the future and the solution. To get rid of modesty, we need to value women's sexual experience. Next slide, thank you. And this all relates to gender-based violence because countries with high gender equality still suffer a gender-based violence problem. And this is so disappointing because what did we all think when we started measuring gender equality? We thought that the gender-based violence would end when we were all equal. But the trouble is, to use the example of Iceland, who has been so good to have reduced their gender equality, the inequality the most, and they've been winning this equality war since 2006, I think. They were the winners of the world in their gender equality. They still have a really bad gender-based violence problem, and they thought it would be fixed by now, but it's not. And the reason it's not is because sexual inequality is not being addressed. I mean, women still wait around for his phone call. Men are still allowed to initiate sex and relationships. They still have an orgasm gap, just like we do, because women's sexuality is not as highly valued or encouraged. Sexual shaming is still a thing. So they still have a gender-based violence problem. But I would like to ask the World Economic Forum to measure sexual inequality. If you can measure sexual inequality, then you can use that as a benchmark, and then maybe we'll get countries more motivated to reduce that sexual inequality because it underpins everything. When women become more sexually empowered, they bring more confidence, they challenge the roles, they encourage other women, they become influencing other women to do the same, and then we demand more from the world. And I wrote these last 2 points about ignoring women buying sexual services because that was the only negative response I got to my PhD research. And that was that, oh, not many women do it, so it's an anomaly. Or, or if women do that, it's just, a bit of fun. It's not the same thing. It's not women taking advantage of other women the way that men do just because they're men. But as a sex worker, I can say that men clients don't take advantage of me. I get their money. That's what I wanted. And I also get lots of great orgasms. That doesn't mean every sex worker wants those things or values those things at work, but it is possible. And, it's still, to compare men and women clients is really unfair because many men buying sexual services feel very vulnerable and are very vulnerable when they're buying services. There's nothing inherent in men that make them know how to pleasure a woman or why to. So, yeah, maybe we can change all that by talking about women's sex as such a good thing. Thank you, Kate. So, happy ending time. I want you all to know that Slutopia is possible because, I can feel people thinking there's no way we can fight thousands of years of men being on top. But actually, we can. Angela Sinai, who was in Australia a couple of years ago, talking about her book, The Patriarchs, How Men Came to Rule, shows us that we maintain patriarchy every single day, and we all do. But sexual shame is not universal. It's culturally constructed, and patriarchy is culturally constructed. We can deconstruct it the same way it's constructed. And that's with a lot of conversations, a lot of people challenging the ideas. We only need like 5% of the population to challenge an idea before it becomes a snowball effect. So #slut2 is a social movement to reclaim the words, but as hashtags have gone out of fashion, but sluts haven't. So we've got to do conversations with real people, and we've got to encourage people to have conversations after our conversations. So if we have conversations and influence people about how good sluts are, then they might have conversations with other people too, and we could get that ball rolling, snowball rolling faster because we should all be free to enjoy our bodies. It's essential for our health. And when women are enjoying better sex, all the people that have sex with women will be too. Sexual equality is good for everyone. Next slide. Oh, so another way you can help is to this is the way when people say, "Oh, I could never be a slut." No, it's so awful. Oh, please don't say that word. Um, it starts inside of us. It's so hard to have these conversations because it's so internal. But I ask you to reflect on your own values, attitudes, and beliefs, which I'm sure you all do being in the profession. Um, but you can encourage others when you have these conversations. Um, and allow your thoughts about commercial sex to be challenged. If you still feel that what I'm saying is niche, it's out there, it's not common, uh, do more work. Think about the sex industry. Do find out more about it. Connect with a few sex workers on social media and see how we're doing things these days. And as sex workers become more visible, which we are, because the digital age is visible. So a lot more people are face out than they were before, and cost of living sends more people into selling sexual services and buying it, by the way, because the more stress we get, the more we need sex. So the sex industry is expanding because of the cost of living, not because we're all more horny than we were before. But because we're getting more visible and telling the truths, we need you to listen. And I say you, I mean the whole world. I know you guys are listening because here you are. But we need the whole world to listen to sex workers because the wisdom of whores is because we've been shamed in the way that all women can learn from. And my own process, I'm really angry. I'm really angry about the discrimination I've faced. But my whole family, but also I've had a lot of orgasms. It's really hard to stay angry after an orgasm. It is really the most open time. And because I have them so regularly, I've been a lot more happier than I would have been if I wasn't having lots of orgasms. And that's kind of filled me with love. And I feel a real deep compassion for the men as well who are not understanding why women are shamed in different ways than them. Something I love to do with a client who says to me straight after, not that I smoke anymore, but you get the idea. We had just finished and he'll say something like, "Oh, I wish my wife was like you." And I'll say, "Well, I'll tell you why she isn't. I'll tell you what happens to women when they want to dance sexy to a YouTube video and they're only two. This is why I have this opportunity to talk to men like this. And I feel so much compassion for men who really have no idea that they've been socially taught different things about sex than women. So being a slut is affirmative action. Thank you. Kate, that's my last bit. Oh, I say it in purple now because celebrating sluts is a force for gender equality. Prove me wrong, please. Let's have a great discussion. I'm really looking forward to questions.
Thank you so much, Hilary. That was fantastic. I also do want to apologize to everyone. My computer was glitching, so I didn't mean to keep changing the slides the whole time. So I do apologize for that, Hilary. If anyone has any questions, please either come off mute or type them in the chat. And while that happens, Hilary, do you want to shamelessly plug your book? Where can we buy it? Because I now really want to read it. That was
Oh,
fantastic.
thank you. Thank you. My book, Slutdom, Reclaiming Shame-Free Sexuality, is available from University of Queensland Press. And I wish I had the hashtag to hold up for you, but it's a quick University of Queensland Press, Slutdom. And I hope you do buy it and share it with as many people. It's also available in libraries, and also the audiobook is in libraries as well, which is free.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Hilary. I will be on that website after this session. Does anyone
Thanks.
have any questions? Linda.
Hey, thank you, Hilary. That was awesome as usual. Dr. Slut is an absolute phenomenon. We love her. Hilary, what do you suggest that we do to shift some of those discriminations? I mean, do we appeal to our banks? Do we talk to insurance companies about those life critical things that are where where there's discrimination? How do we go about changing that?
Yeah, you have some great ideas already. Thanks, Linda. Yeah, I hope that I will start tackling the banks because the banks, um, they have this like overarching um, forum thing for banks where they actually have an algorithm built into discriminating against sex workers. So it's really deep, and all banks use this kind of formula. So it really needs to be tackled from a national side. But yeah, anyone you can talk to is gonna will help. All conversations, yes, and yeah, I think the legal stuff is like the criminalization of our work is really very important because if the government says something's illegal, people immediately think it must be bad. So that's the first thing. I know in Victoria you decriminalized sex work 5 or 6 years ago. I'm so proud, I was there cheering too, and I was on that register in Victoria where you had to register with the police if you wanted to be a sex worker. I mean, that's the most dangerous thing you can do. The police have been much more damaging to me than clients have. Um, and just the fear of being caught, the fear of knowing you're doing something that's criminal in some way. Like, because my property is on the same title as where my children live in the house next door, but it's on the same title. So actually, my brothel is where I work here is the same place as where my kids and grandkids are. So I could be charged with exposing children, and that means my all my income is criminal gains, and it means it just means everything I do. I kept my work a secret for my safety and my children's safety, but yeah, it's so very insidious. So yeah, getting rid of the laws is the first thing. I see Lauren's hand up. Yeah.
Hi, yeah, thank you. That was so wonderful. I suppose I come from a different perspective. I'm an OT, very interested in sort of harnessing my interest and love of sexuality and sexology with OT and sort of combining the powers for two. So I suppose my question is more like when it comes to sexuality and disability and bridging that gap of sexual development, sexuality for people and supporting them, whether it's through neurodivergence or acquired disability or a disability that they're born with, and sex workers, like how bridging that gap. Don't even mention the word NDIS. I don't even want to talk about it, but bridging that gap of harnessing sex work with OT and sexuality.
Yeah, thank you for the work you do, Lauren. It is really important, and you can do so much to help someone with your profession. Thank you. Yeah, I don't want to mention Bill Shorten for sure. I still have a lot of clients with disabilities. Some of them NDIS are paying. Maybe the line item is not what I know. I don't know how all that works. Um, but yeah, it's so very important that people have opportunities for sexual experience. And it's not to say that somebody with a disability could not get the kind of sex that anybody else could, but there are so many more barriers. And maybe I could tell you a story that doesn't answer your question because I don't think there is an answer. But I could tell you a story about a young man who was 18 when he first came to see me because his mum bought the service, and he was about 21 at this age when he came in one day and he was stuttering again. He had a really bad stutter, but after a few years of being with him, I could kind of understand him sometimes. But this one day he got really stuttery again. And I was just thinking, oh, he's really worried about something today. Um, and I'd since said dumb things to him like, oh, have you asked your friends that? but he didn't have any. He'd never had a friend before. He said, I thought I had a friend once on the bus, but he never called back. So I didn't really have a friend, just thought I did. And I'd say other dumb things like, how's work going? But he only ever got to do the trial shifts and then not come on again. So he never really had a job. And he was really very disabled with autism. But he really loved our service. He was highly motivated to earn money to come and see me. But he, early on, when I'd say, what would you like to do today? And he'd give me a list because he'd been, researching it. And one day he said to me, oh, I'd like to do a bit of anal. And I'm like, oh, hang on a minute. That's not actually included in this service today. We're not going to be able to do those sorts of things. They take more time. But I could do it to you if you like. Oh, no, 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 no. So anyway, he didn't want that. But on this day when he was stuttering, he said, can I have a bit of anal? And I'm like, I'm going to do it to you. And he's like, yeah. Okay, that's fine. Anyway, we get going. He likes it until he doesn't. And then we do something else, which is so what anal's like. And and then he finished up early, which is really strange because something with autism I found with my autistic clients is that they are so bereft of human touch that they're going to get as much touch as they can in that time. They're going to right up to the minute be getting as much touch as possible. They're saving it up. And they also have, because of that, really good control. They know exactly what their body's doing and they know exactly when they're going to orgasm. So this particular day, he came early and I'm like, are you sure? Like, okay, let's enjoy it. And so he wanted to talk, which is, as I said, really unusual because I was one of two people he could talk to, his mum and me. Because his stutter's so bad, people don't give him the time. So he doesn't get to talk to people. So he did want to talk. And he said, oh, some mums will kick you out for that. I'm like, what? Kick you out for like having anal sex? And he was like, oh, no, 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 no. Oh, I haven't been watching porn. Okay, you don't have to watch porn. It's a great thing. But if you don't want to watch it, that's you don't have to. Do you think your mum would kick you out if you were watching porn? It's like, no, 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 gay. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. No one's gay, no one's straight. Everyone's a bit of everything and we're all capable of everything. And, a lot of women enjoy anal sex and they're not gay men. So, it's all right. This is a normal thing. A lot of people like anal sex. And he just went, like it was better than the orgasm. And he started to skip. Like he couldn't walk. He had to skip with joy because he thought if he'd been watching some porn with gay men enjoying anal sex and then his mum found out that he liked anal sex and he would be gay and his mum would kick him out. And he can only talk to two people. He can't ask his mum. So, how important is this to people to have these relationships? What a privilege for me to be there with him. Sorry, I can't answer the question. I want things to be better.
You don't need to answer the question. I think there's never going to be a simple answer, but it's so important. And I think that's why I'm trying to combine these forces because it's such important work. And
yeah. I'll give my book to people because I think they'll see a side of the benefits of buying services that they never thought before because, you don't even want to think about that horrible industry where women are exploited. So, yeah, we've got to get away from those kinds of narratives that are so damaging to everyone.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? We still have a few minutes. I'm going to take that silence as a no and end it there. But thank you so much, Hilary, for that presentation. That was amazing. And I think we're all going to walk away with so much in our brains and a lot of food for thought. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming. Please have conversations.
Thank you, everyone. We have another session in May with Stephanie Bond, who will be presenting on congenital syphilis, if you're interested in attending. If not, have a lovely day and see you soon.
Thank you.